Alright, so at this point, you're probably starting to see some pitfalls to the templates. You're starting to see, like, oh, I really want to try this, I really want to do this differently, things like that. If that's the case, then this is going exactly as planned, because that's the idea. This is a process, and I really need, or not, I don't really need you, but you really need to think of how to do this process, how it's going to be integrated into your pipeline, how it's going to work for you when creating a template, nodes you're going to have to make that get the effects that you wanted to create, and how you're going to have them talk together. And the most difficult part of making a template is how to automate it, how to make it so I can take this wall out, put another wall in, and get relatively the same uh, uh, res- uh, geez get the same end result. There we go. So that's the idea of this. I'm not trying to make some showcase wall here. I'm just trying to show you guys the process. I'm trying to show you how to think and try to get you to start to think, so that you could be like, all right, if we do this, we need to make these kind of nodes. And now you should probably start understanding when I was talking about substance designer in your pipeline and in the game industry, and I was talking about how, hey, you're looking at like 6 months ish, to set everything up, because now you're starting to see the volume of nodes you're going to have to make, because you're going to have to make these mask generators. You're going to have to make, these base materials. You're going to have to start by making each little piece, and then once you've taken all the time to do that, then you'd have to start stitching them together into a template. So it's a lot of time, but again, the amount of time you end up saving from doing this is, it's multiplicative. Is that how you say that? You keep saving time, and more artists you get, each of those artists are saving time with texturing and getting base texturings done. So the amount of money you start saving by putting the time in up front is crazy. So by now you're probably saying like, hey, maybe I wanted to add more unique materials up in our base material, or maybe I wanted to add different things in our effects. I really don't like how the edge damages or these leaks just aren't what I'm looking for. Exactly. You should be thinking that way, and then you should start looking into how to improving that for yourself, how to make it better. Again, no, the hardest part is how to automate it, is how to make it so you have inputs that are relatively simple that give you the answers you need. I guess I could, there's one that I was recently working on. Let's see if I could find it. It's not done, that's why I'm willing to show it. Let me pull it up real quick. So you see these leaks. I was working on similar leaks for myself, or for the game. Let me go, let's see, materials, substance, max generators. Alright, so I'm going to open up this guy. Go ahead and pin this. Oil leaks. So like I started creating oil leaks, so it's a little bit different. Now, I was using FX maps, which are definitely more advanced. But let me show you what the end result is, because this doesn't actually have its inputs. So if we take my oil leaks, so you can kind of see the difference of when you start kind of creating your own to answer your own questions. Or, in this case, I didn't like how even all this is, and how it like just outlines it. I didn't like how, technically if this was leaking, it would probably round this way, but instead it's rounding the other way, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and pull this in. This is asking for a mask. I don't remember. Let's actually look real quick. Our inputs, normal map. Okay. So let's go ahead and plug our normal map in, and plug our position map. And we're just going to override our leaks here with these leaks. Alright. Now you're going to see it's going to be a little bit different of an effect now. I haven't tried it yet on this, so let's see what happens. So the thing here is we have randomness, so we can choose to randomize our dirt. You have sampling, length, brightness, overall intensity. Interesting thing is, it's not grabbing the lines. I think that's because I tried a different way of doing my normal maps versus how we usually do our normal maps. And I think that's why we're getting odd results. So again, that's something you have to look out for. So normally, for us, we don't do smoothing groups usually in our game. Usually everything's one smoothing group, and then you bake on, we just bake from there. Now I know it's usually better to break all your smoothing groups at a 90 degree or 45, you know, based on smoothing groups, break your UVs. But I think that's causing a different calculation than what I had, which makes me kind of sad, because I really liked how it used to look. But this one is definitely looking a bit different. The other thing could be, what is the position? Let's bring this normal map in. It's interesting that it's finding some really weird spots. So this was a horrible example, but nonetheless an example. You know, you still need to look at. You can be like, all right, I baked this differently than what our assets usually look like. So now all of a sudden this node is not working. Now if we were to take our normal, what a normal looks like, let's go over here, find ourselves a position map, which in this case we just use a gradient. So just load that real quick. Boop. Show you guys the difference here. So if we do that, now you can see here, you know, it's finding all the grooves just fine. It's working out, you know, exactly how it's meant to be. Excuse me, again. Now if we bring in our other resource, let's see. Let's just see if the position map is what's making it weird. So let's bring in this position. No, I mean, obviously the mesh isn't the same. You know, we're looking at a plane, but it's still blurring in the proper directions. So that tells me that there's a problem with that normal map, and we could even bring that in real quick and see what's going on there. And sure enough, yeah, it wants to pick up everything that's not the crevices like I had in that other one. So the leaks, the old way I did it, the leaks work great for, see how this is just basically flat, so it works great for flat stuff where the crevices are actually right next to each other. That means it's working great. So I should go back and retune it now that I'm looking at a different normal map. Be like, all right, sure, this will work great for tile sets and things that are going to be flat, but it's not going to work at all for things that are actually, you know, 3D. So this will work great for delete that. This will work great for if, let's say, I added a line. You know, let's say we added some of these normal map lines, and all of a sudden we're like, all right, well, we want it to leak from here. Then I'll use this node. If it's something like what we're working with now, I'm going to have to adjust it and try to come up with a different answer, which I'm fine with, and I'll look into that. So now this node is definitely not done. Sad. Alright, let's go ahead and put that leaks back. And let's go ahead and clear that. Alright, so the other thing to note is, I forgot this, remember how I was saying, oh, it usually gets rid of the graininess, and for some reason it wasn't. That was my own fault. I forgot the main part of that is you change your output format to 16-bit. So you go to here, go to absolute, change it to 16-bit, and that will help blur out all that weird noise you get in the normal map. So this noise here, you get all this graininess. If you go ahead and blur it at a 16-bit, you go ahead and remove a lot of that. Okay. Alright, so now we need to talk about how to make all of this talk to each other. So now we have our wall base material. Like I said, this is a template on its own. Now we have our effects, which again is a template on its own. The reason why this can be a really good thing to do is you can make, let's say you have a bunch of metalware that effects that build up how your metal's going to look. You can make a node that just has all of those metal effects in there, and then bring it into your main graph, which is going to be here. Okay. Or you can make one with all your clothware. You can make, different effects groups and go ahead and use those again as their own template to, Lego build with. Another tool, another utility node. You kind of have to think that way. So how do we start getting these to talk to each other? All right, let's go back to our base wall materials. All right. So we need to start adding inputs, like actual inputs. So the way to do that is this isn't an actual input, this is a bitmap. So what we're going to do is hit spacebar and go to input, create color image input. Okay. We need a mask, so we'll just go ahead and click this. We're going to make this a mask. Really, you can make it whatever you want. This, again, just makes the tags easier. So we'll put color mask there, label, mask. Oops. Not there. Let's remake that before I break something. I'll show you what that's for in a second. So we'll put mask, label, color mask. There we go. And then go ahead and go down here. Choose mask. You can choose nothing, whatever you'd like to do. We'll go ahead and take this input, connect it. Like that. Alright, now you notice now we lost our information. Well, to fix this, if you just make an input, you can drag and drop any bitmap into this input, and it doesn't actually save as it, it's just a placeholder. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and grab our InMap and drop it in there. And then that PKG I was talking about is just going to point towards that resource that's in our package as just the example file that's in there. But now, if you notice, we go back over to our tech wall. Now all of a sudden, we have a color mask input node. Okay, and you can even put that description there. So if we come back here, I should just pin all these open. So if we go back here, we could just say add mask to separate materials. Okay. So now if you come back here to our tech wall, now someone can hover over it and they can see what it does, and they're like, alright, I need to add a mask here. Let's bring our InMap in. Dude. And now it separates our materials. Alright, so that's our first step. So now this is working. So now let's go back to our effects. Kind of need to do the same thing. So let's make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different inputs. Okay. So we need a few color and a few grayscale. If you notice, they are separate. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with this one. This is going to be our position. Okay, hold down shift to go ahead and connect. Click number 1. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and grab our position map, just so we can still use it for our example. Go ahead and delete that. Now we're going to come up to our InMap here. Actually, let's duplicate this guy. We're going to make this our AO. Again, label however you want. Delete that. We'll slide in our AO. Alright, so we need to make our InMap our normal map. So technically we already have our InMap here, right? And that needs to come up in here. So we can actually separate this and move it here because it's no longer an input by itself. This is now our input. So we'll go ahead and click this, make this our color mask input. Oops. Okay. Shift, connect, delete, and we'll also connect it there. and slide our in map into there. Alright, so now we have this one set up to go into our next one. So let's go back to our base tech wall, and we're going to grab our new effects one, drag this guy in, tech wall effects. Okay, so what's it looking for? It's looking for that color mask, which is here. Awesome. It's looking for a position, which we don't have in here, so let's go ahead and drag and drop that. Okay, and it's looking for our AO, which we also have. Alright, now you'll notice we forgot one. We forgot to add the normal map, so let's go back to our effects. Spacebar, color image input, and we're looking to make this a normal. Now, one of the reasons why I haven't been adding these is because most of these times these are user inputs. They're not going to have it named normal when they bring it in, so this tag doesn't really matter. Unfortunately. Alright, so there we go. Go back over here. Now we have our normal input, so now we can go ahead and drag that up there. Alright, so that means everything is being piped in through here, right? Not quite, actually, because we actually made a pretty big mistake. So we have this here, we have our base materials here, but our base materials are also hiding in here. We don't really want that. We want our base materials to be separate so we can use this node on its own, right? So, what should we do? Well, let's go back to our effects. Alright, we connected this color mask here. Let's go ahead and hit number 1. So you'll see we have the normal map input, roughness, metallic, base color. So what we should technically do is make 3 new inputs just for that. Alright, so let's go ahead and do input. So we need 1 color, 2 grayscale. Go and duplicate that. Now for these, I would totally suggest exactly what we talked about, and that is actually select what they are. So here, this is going to be base color, base color, base color. We're actually going to group these. This is going to be material, or let's just name it group. This will be roughness. Again, we're going to group it. We're just going to call it group. And last one's going to be metallic, which I think is way down here. Yep. Alright, so we're actually going to replace all of these inputs with this stuff here. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this means you'll no longer be able to view. You can keep this node in here just to reconnect it when you need to view things, but there's no real way to slide in like we were doing with the other nodes. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do that, which, oh, yeah, we lost everything. Now, like I said, just you can leave this in here, disconnect it, I would say, and then reconnect it if you need to make adjustments. We're just going to delete it. Alright, let's go back to our tech wall. Now, by us grouping those, it didn't do anything. Maybe it doesn't like being called group. Input. So they should collapse together, just to make it easier to see. Let's go back. Huh. For some reason it's not happy right now. Which is fine. So we already put our normal map in there, so now we need to go ahead and connect the rest of these. So we'll go ahead and hit number 1. Diffuse, roughness, metallic. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and connect these out. Bring our normal map back up. Give it a sec. Alright, so now you have a masking node, or not a masking node, effects node. And like I said, if you had a few different ones, let's say you had one just for dirt, that has a whole bunch of different dirt effects. You have one just for a whole bunch of metal. You could then daisy chain those in here and bring them into your final graph. That's what this is going to be, is our final graph. So let's go ahead and view this in 3D. There we go. Alright, so now you have these inputs, you have all this stuff going. So let's go ahead and do some more housekeeping. We'll go ahead and, again, spacebar, add frame. These are going to be our input nodes. Input nodes. User inputs. Okay. Alright, so let's see what time we're at. We're at 20 minutes. I think I can explain this next part. So the next part is definitely the most time-consuming part, and that's going to be exposing functions to make sliders. Okay. So if we take this graph currently, if we went ahead and made a new graph, alright, we could take our tech wall, drag and drop it. Alright, here we go. Random output. Oh, didn't name that output. Alright, so now we have our node. If you notice, we still need to make inputs here. But if you also notice, we have no options to do anything, which is kind of counterproductive. So again, you'd have to go through and let's make inputs for all these. I'm going to pause it and go ahead and make all the inputs real quick. Alright, so I just did that real quick. Now, you can always choose to start out by doing this. It's just usually you're working quickly. You just kind of import the images, see what's working, see what's not, deleting stuff quickly, instead of trying to create the input, fill out all that stuff. I just have always found that easier and then come back to it. But whatever you choose is whatever you choose. So let's go ahead, now that I named those inputs, let's go back here to our new graph. So now you see we have our inputs, we have our outputs. Alright, awesome. So now we could technically connect anything we want with these parameters and get basically the wall effect that we had in there. Okay? So let's talk about exposing those functions real quick. Simplest. This is the next thing you have to kind of think about. Maybe I should do this in the next video. I'm going to pause this, or publish this. And then our next video will be exposing functions. Basic exposing functions. I'm not going to go into writing your own functions for the most part. Yeah, I won't. But we'll talk about how to kind of set up something for your users to use, your user interface for these graphs or substances, templates, whatever. So much talking. Hopefully this is helpful. Leave a comment below. Hopefully by now you're starting to see this all come together, and hopefully there's some cool stuff that comes out of it.